What is up, YouTube? It's Reese from Pokernomix here, back with another installment of the vlog. This week we're going to be playing in our private 1-2 uncapped home game. Our last session was from here. We pulled out a decent win. There's always live action, and it's actually been a few weeks since we got to play. It's about 3 weeks since we did our last vlog session. We've been closing deals, working, traveling, and I just recently bought some real estate too. So this is the kind of stuff that whales have to do when they're not playing poker so they can afford to play poker. Before we get to the felt, I just want to thank all of our viewers and everybody that's been liking, commenting, subscribing to our channel. Had a real uptick in our following over the last couple of episodes. I hope to continue that trend. Please share this video with anyone you know that likes poker vlogs, likes seeing whales and this kind of content. Nonetheless, we're back. We got better content. We got better quality video, better audio, and better editing. So you guys are in for a treat. And with that, let's go to the felt. Roll into the game. They've been playing for about an hour now. Stacks look decent, but more importantly, the lineup tonight looks particularly good. We're going to have a live game. I buy in for my standard 1,000, and we're ready to kick some ass. After we sit down, we fold for about an orbit and a half and play our first hand in the big blind when we look down at the Queen 4 of hearts. Early position better in seat 9 is going to make it 30 to go and get 3 callers before it comes back around to me. I'm going to complete and we'll have 5 to a flop, 150 in the pot. That flop comes out 8-4-3 with 2 diamonds. We flop middle pair and a backdoor flush draw. We're going to check around to the pre-flop better. He's going to continuation bet here for 85. Going to fold back around to us. We're the only player left to act. This is the guy that we always get in hands with. It's usually playing more premium hands and a much tighter range than myself, of course. We call. After I call the $85 bet on the flop, the turn comes a deuce of hearts, giving me a backdoor flush draw, and I'm out of position. This is a weird spot in hindsight, looking back on this very bad play, because it's just like a weird lead after check calling the flop bet. But I jam on him, trying to get him to fold a mediocre hand, a pair of like 5s or 6s, or a big ace that he was just continuation betting on the flop. He's going to tank for a while. There's 320 in the pot at this point. The all-in bet was 390, and eventually he does make the call. I ask him if he has 2 6s. He's like, no, are they good? I said, yeah, you're gonna be good here. The river comes in 8, he trips up, and he actually has 8-9 of clubs. Totally makes sense for him to not be aware of where he's at with a marginal 8 in this spot, but obviously against a maniac like me, there's a lot of equity in calling here. He's gonna scoop this $1,100 pot, and we're going to have to do a 2K reload right off the bat in this session, and we'll go to the next hand. About 20 minutes after the reload, we play our first spot here. We're getting a little antsy. It's early in the session. We want to splash around. We're in the low jack. We look down at the 5-6 offsuit. We just limp the $5 straddle here. It's a wreck game, guys. There's a lot of just like limp calling. I don't know what to tell y'all. So I just limp the 5-6 here for $5. We get 7 players to a flop. That flop is going to come 4-5-10 with 2 clubs. Wet board. I've got middle pair, no kicker, and it checks around to me. I'm in late position here, and I'm going to bet 25. Now, naturally, I bet 25 at this $35 pot and get 4 callers. So we've got a $160 pot at this point. The turn comes the 5 of spades, giving me trips. It's going to check around to me, and I'm going to bet 75 bucks. I get 1 caller out of position, and now we've got a pot of $310. The river's going to come an absolutely blank deuce. He checks to me, and I very quickly bet 250. These guys know that I was steaming from the first hand where I came in here and punted, and this guy makes a comment, hey, I have nothing, and then calls, and I show him the 5, he mucks, and we drag an $800 pot. Stack update for those of y'all keeping track at home. We've got 2,500 in our stack at this point. Obviously, we're in for 3K. Night's just beginning. Let's go. My next spot takes place half an orbit later. We're on the button. The $10 straddle is out. So we're going to throw the $20 restraddle on this, pump this action up on the button. 1, 2, 10, 20. Seat 9, early position player, pretty premium hand type of guy. He opens for 60 in early position. The action's going to fold around, the blinds fold, actions to me. I'm 3-betting this 95% of the time. Y'all let me know in the comments what you think here. Ace queen on the button on a restraddle when you have 125 big blinds effectively. Is this a 3-bet all the time? I ultimately decided to just call the open. There's 123 bucks in the pot, and that flop's going to come out the 4, 10, 9 with 2 diamonds. We flop the nut flush draw with 2 overs. Huge flop for this hand.
He was the pre-flop aggressor, and he's going to check this flop to me. I want to take control of this hand here, build up this pot, get as much equity as we can if we smack this flush draw. We bet 110 bucks, and he calls pretty quickly. The pot is $343 now. Going to a turn, that turn comes the ace of hearts. He checks to me again. I bet 200, and pretty quickly, again, he calls. Now I'm thinking, did he float me with ace king, and I'm just pipped on my ace here, and he's going to go for value on the river. And lo and behold, the river comes a 10 of clubs, pairing the board. This normally feels like a very strong hand against this guy in his pre-flop range and early position. I think a lot of ace kings are right here. I think that's a very, very possible hand. And he kind of validates that suspicion when he leads out for 325. I'm not raising, obviously, but I think we have to call. I tell him ace king's good and just commit the chips. If he's got it, he's got it. And he flips over 2 jacks. Shows us that he had a really strong hand, had checked that flop. I was really surprised he didn't check raise that flop. We could have gotten a lot more money in there, but ultimately take down about a $1,400 pot. The next hand takes place in the next orbit on my button again. It's actually my bomb pot, and one of the cool things we do at this home game is dealer's choice bomb pot. So you get to choose your game and your ante. I love 5-card high-low, so we're going to play Congress with a $25 ante. 7 players are going to play this, so there's 175 in the pot, and we're just going to go straight to a flop. So I look down at my pre-flop starting 5-card mid here, and we have the jack, ace, 6, 7, queen with 1 suit. Nothing special about that hand, but we just go straight to a flop. That flop rips queen, queen 4 with 2 hearts, and action's going to check around to me. We flop trips with a ace kicker, a lot of danglers here that we can hit a nut boat with. We're going to bet 150 at this pot, little under a pot-sized bet, and it folds around to a live player. He is actually going to call. This is the kind of player that I think is capable of calling with like an over pair with a flush draw, like kings with a flush draw, a dry queen. And obviously there's 4's full and hands that have me beat in there as well. He calls. The turn comes another 4. He checks to me again. I pot it. 475 is the bet this time. And he insta-folds, and we drag this pot on to the next one. Stack update. After we drag that bomb pot hand, we're about even for the session. We're in for 3, sitting with 3 in front of us. I'm card dead for about the next 40-45 minutes when I look down at an ace-7 offsuit in middle position, which is looking pretty enticing at this point. This hand has a 1-2-10 straddle on it with an early position open to 30. I'm going to call, and then we're going to get a call in late position. Everybody else is going to fold out. This flop is going to come out 4-8-5 rainbow. I'm going to flop an inside straight draw with the ace high there. The pre-flop open checks to me. I bet 75 at this point, and they both call. At that point, I get really lucky when I rip the straight off first pitch, no waiting. Turn comes a 6 of hearts. We bet 175. The player behind us is going to flat this, and the pre-flop raiser folds out. The river's going to come out a 4 of clubs, pairing the board. I think that I'm still good here. I think I'm betting for value at this point when I lead for 225. This player that's left to act behind me is a creative player and one of the best players in the game. He does like to move, but I don't see him do many river bluffs. That's just something I don't see him do a ton of, like audacious river bluffing. And as soon as I bet that 225, within 30 seconds, he raises to 1,000. Now, this gentleman had just sat down, had been itching to play because this game looked very juicy, and had just gotten a seat, sat down, and is splashing around his first hand, which he has done before. I've seen him call off, thousands of dollars with 3-6 suited and shit like that. So this is a weird spot for me. He just sat down. He's wanting to play. I've represented a lot of strength. He's flatted me on the flop and the turn, and now he's hammering river. And I'm frozen. I'm not sure what to do. At this point, there's $1,145 in the pot. I've got to call 775. This is basically 1.5 to 1. It's 3 to 2 odds. If I'm right 40% of the time, I think this is the right call. I do not think that he's bluffing 40% of the time here. I don't think that my hand's good here 40% of the time. I think it's much less. I think it's more like half of that, maybe 20% of the time. 1 out of 5 times, maybe he's bluffing here, and this is a bluff catcher. But I go into the tank, and this is something that I don't do. I never tank, especially for 3, 4, 5 minutes, but something about this bet is just not making sense, and I comment on it, and I squeeze this guy. I say, why does this feel genuine? What's going on? I just cannot put a hand in this range that makes sense on this board pair outside of like a weird 5-4 bottom pair that just was trying to call the turn to pair up, right? So I ultimately decide to fold, and he shows the 8-5, which obviously this makes some sense. This game, everybody plays all sorts of pre-flop ranges and all sorts of hands. He flopped 2 pair, which would make sense on the calls on the flop and turn, but turning it into a bluff on the river after I've let out did not put that in this hand. This is definitely the hand of the night. Very frustrating spot because I felt it that he was bluffing here. This dude's gotten me to pay him off so many times. I was a little gun shy to pull the trigger. He'll tell me what you would have done in this spot. You've let out, you're getting 2-1 on a $700 call. Are you making the call here with the second nut straight on a paired board? Let us know in the comments. Until then, next hand. 20 minutes later, we play this next spot. We are on the button. We put the $10 straddle out. Early position, seat 9 is going to open for $40. He'll get 1 caller. I complete that. We've got 3 players taking a flop. $120 in the pot. That flop comes out 10 queen queen rainbow board. The pre-flop aggressor is going to lead here for 65. The player in between us folds, and I am going to see if I can blow him off this hand, hoping that he has a big ace or a small pair. I want to see where we're at, see if we can't just run a naked bluff through this hand. And so we raise it to 265. He thinks about it for a second and calls. The turn comes a 5 of diamonds. He checks to me again. And at this point, I'm thinking if he did speculate on the flop with a marginal pair, showing strength again, taking the action away from him, raising the flop, hammering the turn, I think that he has a foldable hand. I don't put him on a queen here. I don't even put him on a 10. And so when he checks to me, I put him all in. It's 505 was the bet. He thinks about it for a little bit and ultimately calls. He has king queen, had opened in early position with that, led on the flop, and just totally owned me, or I should say I owned myself in this spot. Just put in as much money as I could with as little equity as possible and just punted a $1,600 pot this gentleman's way. Nice hand. Stack update. After that hand, we're going to have to reload. We're adding on 2K at this point. We're in 5K now. Time to get to work. This hand takes place literally right after the deuce 4 bluff and the reload. We look down at the jack 6 of diamonds in the big blind, and we are in fuego. We're tilted right now, and we're ready to play some hands. There was an open on this hand in early position for 20. There was 1 caller. Gets back around to me. I'm just fuming. I make it 100 to go. We get 2 callers. So now there's $300 in the pot. And if you were to raise with jack 6 of diamonds, like what would your dream flop be like? Would it be like a pair gut shot, flush draw, straight draw, something like that, right? Boom, 985, the miracle flop for the jack 6 of diamonds. Relatively good flush draw, decent straight draw as well. And we have taken over betting action in this hand. So we actually bet 175 on this flop when the action gets to us. We get 1 caller that's in seat 9. It's the guy that we just had bluffed to, and the other player folds. The pot is 650 now. The turn's going to come the 4 of diamonds, and I'm going to check this, see if we can't disguise our hand a little bit. First pitching the flush with this garbage hand. Obviously, I want to get value at this point. He checks behind me. The river comes a very innocuous 3 of spades. There's, about 650 in the pot. I'm going to overbet this and try to make this look a little bluffy, and I bet 750, and he folds pretty quickly, and we drag this pot. This next hand takes place 6 hands after the last spot. Before we start this, I want to say that these suited hands, the jack 6s, the queen 4s, the king 6s, these are my Achilles heel in low stakes game. And I say that is a 1-2 game. It plays like a 5-10. After putting together and spending a few hours doing these vlogs and looking at a bunch of the comments from all the professional poker wizards that are watching the vlogs now, I get it. And I am seeing the poor equity that you get in some of these spots. This is a perfect example of one of those shit hands when you're tilted. It was a 1-2-10-20 restraddle in this spot. We had 1 player to my right, limp the straddle. I pop it for 100. The gentleman directly to my left, not 1 to 3-bet light, instantly makes it 300. He's got about 3,500 in front of him. I've got about 3,000. And the other player in the hand has a very deep stack as well, a couple $1,000. The other player that just called the 20 is going to cold call the 300 3-bet. And so I'm getting insane odds at this point. I'm going to call as well. We've got $900 in this pot, and we are taking a flop. That flop is going to come out the deuce Queen 8 with 2 hearts. Player to my right checks, I check. Pre-flop 3-better's going to hammer this for 500. Other player in the hand folds. We are getting just insane odds at this point, 3-1 basically. And we're gonna call, try to rip one off on our flush draw. So we call that $500 bet. Now there's $1,900 in the pot. Turn comes, a absolute brick. He's going to fire again. He bets 1,000 at this point, and we cannot complete this bet. We're not gonna chase the flush draw at this point. We fold, but we had just torched, $800 in a completely unnecessary spot, trying to get a little crafty in this game. We're about 4 hours into the session when one of the players suggests that we play some Omaha. The table agrees we're going to do a round of each, and so this is one of the first PLO hands we play. It's 1-2-5. Early position player makes it 15. We look down at the ace king 3-3. We're going to flat that 15, a player behind us flats, and the button is going to 3-bet to 65. All three of us are going to complete that, and so we're going to take a flop here with about $260 in the pot. That flop is going to come ace 10 ace. We are in middle position here. The first player to act checks. We check. The player behind us bets 125. Now this dude had just flatted that 15. He was not the guy that 3-betted. 3-better folds, and it folds back around to me. I am the only one left to act. And obviously we have 3 aces, not kicker, but this is, PLO. We're going to play this a little cautiously. We flat that 125, pot's $510 at this point. The turn is a 5, an absolute brick for us. We check to this player. This is not someone that's going to be hammering this light, and I don't think he's doing it with anything less than a full, much less a large one, like the ace 10, nut boat. I check, he bets 500. We fold. This is an easy Omaha fold. He tells us afterwards that he had ace 10 there. Totally believable, and we just go on to the next hand. This is the very next hand that we play, and it's another Omaha hand, and we look down at double suited aces, hearts and diamonds, ace, ace, queen 6. This is a very strong hand. We open, we try to make it 25 or 30, and because of the lack of action, the open at this point on the $5 is a 20. So we open for 20 and actually get 5 callers, 6 ways to a flop, $120 in the pot. And that flop comes the 5 of diamonds, the ace of clubs, 3 of clubs. We flop top set on a wheel board, multi-way. We want to build a big pot here. This is very likely the best hand. If not, we have a ton of equity to make it the best hand if we fill up or catch a backdoor flush or something. So we're trying to play this a little sneakily. We've got, I think, 3 people to act behind us. There's a check. We check. 3 players behind us all check. And so the flop goes around. Nobody ends up betting. We were looking to check raise this spot. In hindsight, that was a bad play. Probably should have let out here. The turn comes the 4 of diamonds. Adds the nut flush draw to us, but this is a wet board. There's a 6-7 nut straight, there's wheels, there's 3 sevens, there's a million straights, but we have tons of equity at this point. Have no problem betting this and getting called and building a pot where we have a lot of equity to draw out. So we bet $100. We get called in 2 spots. There's $420 in the pot, and the river comes the 6 of clubs, probably the worst card that could make there, completes higher straights, completes the front door flush draw, and we have nothing. The river checks around, and a 3-7 inside straight is going to win this $400 hand. And yeah, that's Omaha, guys. We play a couple of more Omaha hands. We get back to the Hold'em round when I play this hand in the low jack. I look down at the king 5 of clubs. This is a 1-2 hand, no straddle. There's 1 limper of that 2. I open for 25. And seat 9, my nemesis here, 3 bets to 115. Pretty quickly, and the gentleman that had limped the blinds is going to cold call that 115. I'm going to complete that $90 raise to me. So we've got about $348 in that pot, and this flop is going to come out the queen of spades, the 10 of hearts, king of hearts, and we all check around. I was surprised to see the pre-flop 3-better not bet this flop. The turn is going to come out a deuce of clubs, which doesn't change anything. And the gentleman that limped in early position leads out for 150. Very quickly, I raise to 400 to see where we're at, see if the pre-flop 3-better is interested in this hand and interested in committing further. He folds pretty quickly, and the guy in seat 5 that led for 150, he's going to call. We've got a good sized pot now. There's $1,148 in this pot. It's a wet board. There's a flush draw. There's straight draws. The river comes the deuce of hearts, and player's going to check to me. At this point, really just have a bluff catcher. We can catch an ace, queen, queen, jack type hand, and we check back. And that's what he had. Had the ace, queen with the ace of hearts. He laments about not leading out that river and bluffing, and we drag an $1,148 pot. We're card dead for the next half an hour and call our round and end on the Omaha round. This is the last hand that we play in this session. We look down at the 8-8-6-9 with a suit. We are in the $10 straddle under the gun. An early position player is going to make it 35 and pick up 2 callers before it comes back around to me. I'm going to 3-bet this to 135. All 3 players are going to call. We're 4-way to a flop, $520 in this pot. When this flop comes out, the 9-7-10 with 2 clubs. We flop the bottom end of the straight with 2 8s in our hand. Out of position player pots it right out the gate for 520. The player after him instantly repots it. He's got about 1,500 behind him. Comes to me. This is an easy fold at this point. We don't have the nut hand. It's just the board. It's very likely the dude that repotted has like a pair flush draw or something like that. That comes into mind as I think about this spot, that I'm probably good in the side pot, maybe in the main pot. Into the session, wet board, clubs out there, no clubs in my hand, no blockers. We just let it go. There's actually one other player that commits in this hand, the guy behind me, and they run it out. And the gentleman behind me had top 2 pair with the 10-7, and he actually fills up. And the player that had 3-bet there had the 10 with a straight draw and flush draw and just could not get there. I'm pretty wiped at this point. Been playing for over 5 hours, playing pretty poorly the entire time. We're just going to cash out and come back to fight another day.
Yikes. That was not a session to write home about. Ended up being in this game for 5K. We cashed out 30.70 for a loss of 19.30. Looking back on this, reflecting on it a couple days later, I can totally see the leaks that led to that and the spots that put me in that. Bluffing on the deuce 4 hand, I punted about $800 there. Playing the marginal hands like the king 4 of hearts, chasing a flush draw on that. You know, it's $800. It's just gone. Chasing a marginal hand in a spot that I shouldn't have been involved in. So, you know, one of the things that I like to think I have a good grasp on is self-awareness. In these low stakes games, playing too wide of a range, that is my kryptonite. Playing these like shit suited hands, the jack deuces and queen 4s, these are just garbage hands. And being in like a home game with your buddies, you want to bust them, and you want to bust the tight players with junk hands just splashing around. But that is a problem in this specific game, because this specific home game, while billed as a 1-2, really plays like a 5-10 or a 10-20. So I think moving forward, being tighter, obviously, with my pre-flop range is going to minimize those marginal spots that I continue to find myself in. It's also going to allow me to continue to get value and get paid off of my big hands, which is one of the things that this game continues to allow for, is, you know, players that are just paying off big hands, and part of that is my reputation, and part of it is the mixture of players there. It is just a very good game. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what y'all think about that fold that I had on the ace 7 versus 2 pair board on that river when I let out. That was a weird spot. I want to know what the audience thinks about that. Do you fold there? Do you play it differently? Do you check call the river if you think that he's capable of bluffing? Yeah, next time we'll be back. I'll be doing some sessions at TCH here soon. Please give us feedback and subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next time with more action from the felt. Let me know what you liked about this one, what you'd like to see in future episodes, and we'll see you then. Later. Hey, thanks for watching. Comment below, let us know what you thought, subscribe to our channel, and follow us on social media.